Two guys either side of 50 with one dream to achieve middle-aged sporting glory. This is the Missing Links Golf Show. Andy Walker, episode 66 of the Missing Links Golf Show.
Yes.
Did you pick up the same anomaly that I picked up in that intro?
Well, in listening to the intro, I did, it became very, very clear that this time next week, that intro is obsolete.
I will put it to you that this time this week, when this episode is in fact released, that the intro is already obsolete. So technically, the intro could have sounded like one guy either side of 50.
Yeah, maybe.
Because today I'm 49 when we record, but when pilgrims you hear this episode, I will actually be 50. So I am officially either side of 50 on my own.
Yes, yes. Well, you know, I think from now on, we're going to have to rejig that and come up with something else.
Yep. There's a job.
Two guys the other side of 50.
There's a job for the weekend. Maybe we'll record that on Saturday night when we're celebrating set 50.
Yes. So this weekend, pilgrims, I am making the trip out to the Central West and celebrating with a bunch of mates. And Steve will be there, obviously, as well.
Which is useful. Be awkward if I wasn't.
To celebrate his 50th. So it should be a very, very good weekend. We are going to try and sneak in 9 holes.
Weather permitting.
Which is looking, 50-50 at the moment. There are storms.
Nice. I see what you did with that. It's looking 50-50. That was quality.
Like I think with storms approaching, there may not be a lot of golf drunk, but certainly we'll be at the golf club.
There may not be a lot of golf drunk.
Maybe I am drunk already. Like maybe I'm preparing for the weekend. Wow. We're off to a flyer.
Wow. This is outstanding. This is what happens when you get old and senile, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens. Anyway, it is happening. This weekend is a landmark birthday and quite the moment. Not sure exactly how I feel about that, Andy Walker. I think there's been a bit of reflection going on over the last week, as I mentioned to you before, and pilgrims do the maths on this, but the thought occurred to me this morning was when I was driving to work that the distance between 1975 and 2000 is the same as the distance between 2000 and 2025. And that just does not feel right.
It doesn't.
I've got to admit.
Like it was such and as kids, we think we've got so much time and, a year sort of plays out and it's forever. Feels like forever that, for a year to occur, and then all of a sudden you're 50 and what happened?
I know.
Yeah. And we said before we jumped on air that, I genuinely feel like 30 years ago was the early 1980s, and
I know
it wasn't.
No.
It was 1995. And I mean, I can't believe that, like in 1996 it was the year that I had a crack and tried to go up to the tour school and turn pro. Like it was almost 30 years ago.
Yep. It's a long time ago. There's so many different ways that you can slice and dice it, and all of those, kind of realizations about how much of our lives have passed us by already. That's not the angle that we want to take, though.
Do you realise also that we've been mates half your life?
I know. That feels a lot longer, I've got to be honest. But
is that a good thing, or
read into that what you will? We'll talk about that later on Saturday night. That's the 11 p.m. conversation. Yes. But no, it's true.
26th of July year 2000.
I know.
Was the day we met, the first day of our
training.
Yes.
Would you call that? Is that a mateversary?
I think it must be.
Oh, then we'll go with that. I like that word. That's good. It's a mateversary. Yeah, because quite often you don't know that. I mean, I suppose you do with your schoolmates. You don't. You know when you started school together and all those sort of landmark moments. But yeah, a lot of the time there's not. Kind of like, oh, yeah, when did I meet so and so? I don't really know. But in this instance, of course, we do. Yeah, and you're right. It was exactly then in the build up to the Olympics in Sydney in 2000.
Yes,
far out.
Yes, it was. Yep. Yeah, it was a very exciting time in the city of Sydney. I remember it. Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday, even though it wasn't.
It obviously wasn't, as we just established.
Yes. Yeah. So, one of the more exciting sort of times I've lived through, that couple of weeks where being in and around the city, it was one of the few times where certainly around the Opera House and Circular Quay was just a sea of people.
It was amazing.
There were so many people in Sydney at that stage, and it was a party atmosphere, and it was for 2 weeks.
No, it was good. They were definitely good times. Wow, there you go. There's a bit of a trip down memory lane. Quite something. So yeah, Pilgrims, it's now two guys in their early 50s searching for sporting glory.
Yep.
Which is currently feels like a little while off, but anyway. We're working towards it.
Got to make it into the events before we actually start, winning them, which, I mean, we probably need to give another update briefly before we sort of kick into the agenda for...
We do. Not one that we necessarily want to harp on.
No.
But it is worth acknowledging that we will, in fact, not be playing in the foursomes at the New South Wales Senior Championships, which is disappointing. We missed out by 2 spots.
Yeah.
And in fact, we were tied on handicap with the last pair that got in, but we missed out on countback. I don't know exactly how that worked, but I'm sure there were decimal points involved.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And
however, in the singles, in the actual senior amateur, 4.6 was the cutoff.
I know. That's outrageous.
It is. So, so that means I am in the field. So I did get that.
Congratulations, Andy Walker. We're excited about that.
I'll be teeing up on the first Tuesday in March. So looking forward to that. I actually started in the new High Performance Centre today. So having moved house, the High Performance Centre has come with me. So we've moved off the Central Coast and now in Lake Macquarie. So it's the Missing Links Golf Show High Performance Centre, Lake Macquarie.
It's got a nice ring to it, don't you think?
It does. So it was very, very good. I actually hit it pretty good. I was pretty happy with how I hit it. It's got a fair bit more room. It's a little bit longer, which means that the R10 will be able to pick up a little bit more sort of flight when I between sort of when I hit it and the net, which should improve the data numbers.
Definitely helpful, particularly with driver and some of those clubs that are taking a flatter trajectory into the net. The more distance that you have actually definitely helps.
So it's going to be 10 feet. It is. I measured it. So it's 10 feet from the net to where I hit it from the hitting mat, and then 10 feet from the hitting mat to the R10. So that should give me a fair bit more sort of room to be able, the R10 at least, a fair bit more room to pick up some good numbers.
Yep. I think that should work. Brilliant. But yeah, 4.6, Andy Walker, as the cutoff for the field. That's extraordinary.
It is. It's a lot lower than what I expected it to be.
Particularly when the cutoff for entries was 13.4. I've got no doubt that Golf New South Wales has certainly surprised themselves with the amount of entries that's come in for that tournament, which I mean, we talked a bit about it in the last episode, and we obviously gave some credit to the destination being the draw card for people wanting to put their hat in the ring for the tournament. But I just can't help but think that the fact that one of the leading golf podcasts in Australia has been focused on this event for some time, I can't help but think that there's a correlation there.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
Maybe even a causation.
Yeah. I agree completely.
So I think there's no doubt about that. And we should certainly let them know. So,
well, at the end of the day, if you look at the country championships last year and the scores that won the country championships and the quality of field, that the country championships attracted, now that's happened again with the senior amateur. I mean, it's not a coincidence. It's
not a coincidence, absolutely. And I mean, think of all the other tournaments that we haven't talked about and we haven't entered. I don't know what the take-up's been like for them. So, you know, in this post-truth world in which we live in, I think we can certainly make those claims.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah, without a doubt. Now, Andy Walker, speaking of updates before we get to the main story for the evening, I did have a question.
Yes.
From the Pilgrims.
To me or to us?
To us. You don't know what the question is. I do know what the question is, so I've got some answers. I don't know if you do. The question starts with a statement, but finishes with a question. It's from Robbie from Massachusetts. Welcome, Robbie. Nice to have you on board. Robbie says, "Loving the show, guys. Keep up the great work. Just want to know, how can I help?" So that's a good question.
Well, I think just being part of the community, getting involved in the yearly championship, posting scores, comments, I think that's a big help. Made a really big start. Now, obviously, on the Voice of the Pilgrims. So, just being involved, I think, is the best way.
I think that's a perfect answer. I would go so far as also to say a couple of specific actions, not only Robbie, but every pilgrim could take. Firstly, pretty easy one is tell a friend. If everyone and check this maths out, Andy Walker, if every single pilgrim recommends this show and gets one friend to also listen to it, what do you reckon that will do to our number of listeners?
I reckon it may double it.
Oh, well done. That's very, very good.
There's a reason I'm in accounting.
And that's not it. We'll definitely double it. The other thing that you could do, and this is a simple one, right? When you listen to an episode, don't just listen to it, download it. Click the little button that says download, and also click the one that says follow the show and auto download future episodes, because that actually helps. Because you may not know this, pilgrims, but podcasts do get judged by download numbers, not just listen numbers. So that would be helpful.
What about reviews?
Reviews would be good. Absolutely. Jump on your podcasting platform of choice and leave a review, preferably 5 stars.
That would be most helpful.
If you've got to go lower, then, sure. At least give some hard hitting and preferably amusing commentary to go with it. 5 stars would be good. That's pretty much it, really. I think do those things. That's how to help, Robbie. It's a good question. If, in fact, you meant how can you help our golf, well, then that's a whole different question.
Yes. I'm not sure that being in Massachusetts, you can sort of help our golf too much, and certainly
you never know. Bit more information would be good. Are you an online golf coach?
Well, that's a good point.
Because if that's the case, then sure, we'll send some videos. I don't know. More information. But in the absence of that, download episodes, recommend to a friend, give us a review, get on the Facebook page, join the yearly championship, get involved, all of those things. Or if you run your own business and you're considering sponsoring a show, then also do that. So anyway, we'll move on. Andy Walker, once again, cracking 14.5-minute intro to the episode. Well done. But what are we here to talk about tonight?
Look, we've done a little bit of reminiscing so far in the episode, but this week I think we're going the other way and looking forward, and talking a little bit more about goals, because goals are something that I've been a little bit more focused on over the past few weeks, and as I've been talking about over the last few episodes, I've engaged Paul Salter to with his services, and part of what we've been doing is starting to think about goals and how we go about setting goals and what that means. So I've always been very outcome based with my goals, and I know we've sort of covered this a little bit previously, but the process side of goals I've never been that strong on. However, after reading Atomic Habits, after discussing it on the show, after talking to Paul and working through it, I'm starting to realize just how important those process-based goals are to achieving the end outcome.
They definitely are.
Yeah. So for me,
are you setting any setting goals?
Well, interestingly, yes.
Ooh, was not expecting that, but I like it.
Yeah. So one of my goals, and I only sent just before we got on the show, I wrote Paul a little note just to say, with my goal setting, starting off with my financial goals and my golf goals. However, I really want to look at expanding that out to every part of my life, whether it be, family goals, whether it be education goals, whether it be, community goals. There's a lot of different goals that I think you can, there's a lot of different areas in your life that you can have goals for. So it's not just about going, I want to achieve X on the golf course. It's also becoming, a better husband, a better father, a better human being.
Interesting. So there's a couple of questions that spring up there. Is there an optimum number of goals, or another way of looking at that, not number of goals, but facets to your life to have goals about?
I have seen a goal, like a model, which I think it's 8 different segments of your life. I'd have to go back and have a look. I wasn't expecting that question, so I hadn't really prepared an answer to that. However, I have seen where you slice your life up into 8 different sections, and you set goals for those 8 different sections of your life. Now, for me, I think 8's probably a few too many.
It's quite a lot.
I've always looked at splitting my life up into 5 different areas. So those areas are my business goals, my financial goals, my family goals, my personal goals, and then my health and fitness, which is personal goals would be like education and the like, and then health and fitness goals, and golf sort of fits into that sort of health and fitness goal.
Well, because that kind of was my next question along the line, which is, you've gone for 5 rather than 8.
Yep.
Good, it's fine, because at some point it's just too much to keep track of. So
yeah,
you've got to rein it in at some point. But then the other thing is looking at where do they overlap and where do they compete. And therefore that, I'm sure you'll get into this, but that raises the question around prioritization.
Yes, correct.
And also there might be certain things that are complementary, where goals in one area actually help progress towards goals in another. For example, business goals might mesh really nicely with financial goals.
Yep.
And, personal goals and health goals and some of those sorts of things potentially could complement quite nicely, whereas some others could compete. I could see that where potentially some personal goals would compete against at times business goals, possibly family goals even.
Well, I mean, even if you look at the amount of time spent playing golf, they definitely compete against family goals and the amount of time spent with family. And I mean, we've talked about that. I mean, the Josh Nichols conversation in April, May last year, that's what that completely covered and where he was struggling, and absolutely 100%. And there's a time for everything. And I think that sometimes the pendulum swings one way, and then at other times the pendulum swings back to the other side. So I don't think there needs to be or should be something that's set in stone. I think there's a time and a place where you can have different focuses.
Oh, I think you have to, because there's the ebb and flow of external demands that get placed on you and other things, and that might be work pressures, that might even be illnesses, unforeseen things, could be injuries, could be opportunities that come up, that come out of the blue, all sorts of potential reasons why you might be favouring one thing over another. That does make a lot of sense. But without derailing things and taking you too far down the path, shall we kind of work back to the beginning about some of these processes and some of the things that you're working through with Paul?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things, and Paul wrote a blog earlier in the year, and I'm going to quote a couple of things from the blog because I think it was a really well written piece on goals. And one of the things that Paul says is that at its core, a goal isn't just about achieving an external result. It's about becoming a better version of yourself in the process. And I think that is really, really powerful to actually sit down and think about. That is that, goals are about, you want to achieve the result, but it's actually also about becoming the best version of yourself.
I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that. You know what that makes me think of is the pilgrimage rather than the destination.
100%. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
That's good. It's a nice way of saying, well done, Paul. Nice work.
Yeah. Yeah. So that sort of gave me a little bit of food for thought to be able to go, you know what, I probably need to connect with my goals more and deeper in order to be able to become the better version of myself.
So you do, right? Sorry, I'm jumping in, but you're sparking all sorts of thoughts and ideas, which I know if I'm having them, the pilgrims probably are too. So one of the things on that, like this is one of the reasons why we started the whole thing in the first place.
Yeah.
Right? It's obviously not just about talking about things that you achieve in golf, but it was talking about the lessons you learn on the way, the self-development, all of those elements that you go through as part of the somewhat cliched pilgrimage. But one of the reasons for it, and that connection piece that you're talking about, connecting with your goals, I think comes back to establishing the reason for the goal in the first place. Like what is, to quote Simon Sinek, it starts with why. So, like why have you chosen a particular goal? Why have you chosen an endeavor that you want to pursue? What's the driving force behind that? Otherwise, without having that, that's where you get those flash in the pan momentum shifts of, huge amount of motivation at the beginning. And as soon as it gets a little bit difficult, it tapers off and, classic New Year's resolution style, you do it for January and then you don't continue with any of those behaviors. But if you're really connecting with that why behind the goal, then you're probably more likely to stick at it. Does that make sense?
Well, absolutely. Yeah. And look, that connection, I think really needs to be an emotional connection. And I'm again, some of the cliches around, say, purpose and, passion and these sorts of things. I have a tendency to switch off when I hear those sorts of words. I think they're far too common and used and used very commonly. However, they're also it also aptly I guess, describes what you're trying to achieve, because it does come down to, you know, why, why you're here, and why you're doing what you do, and what ignites, your passion and your emotion in, what you're trying to achieve.
So passion's an interesting word, right? Just to give you a little bit of a business psychology model on this. And again, apologies for the tangents, but it's really interesting stuff, right?
Yeah.
So if I was to say, what is the opposite of love? The classic answer is going to be hate.
Yeah.
All right. That you go, love and hate is this linear spectrum, but it isn't. Love and hate actually sit right next to each other on a more of a circular spectrum, but they're at, if you imagine an X and Y axes of positive and negative in one direction, but the other being passion and ambivalence. Love and hate are the positive flip sides of the passionate end of the spectrum. And that's why when relationships go bad, people flip between love to hate very quickly without much middle ground. You don't go from love to whatever to hate. You go from love to hate, and it can flip-flop on a daily basis like that. So that the difference between passion is actually ambivalence, which is I care a lot or I don't care at all. And somewhere
I was going to say apathy. So,
similar word. Yeah.
Yeah, similar thing. Yeah.
So in the middle of that, though, is the right amount of care, for want of a better term, which is that balanced and stable approach, not the volatility of the highly passionate approach, but the more stable. And that's actually where the positive and negative emotions are furthest apart, because at an apathetic end or an ambivalent end, it's like, I don't really care it's good, I don't really care it's bad. They're very close together. Love and hate, we've established, is very close together. But in the middle, where you're emotionally balanced, positive and negative are actually poles apart. So that's where you are more likely to actually continue to progress when you've got that balanced approach rather than that highly passionate or apathetic approach. That's a massive tangent, but anyway, interesting model if you've followed that one through.
Yeah, well, it's and I agree with that, 100%, because I wouldn't have thought that hate is the opposite side of love at all. I mean, they're two very different emotions, obviously, but they are right on that edge of the spectrum with passion. However, another thing that Paul covers, and it's about having clear goals, is a clear goal becomes your compass in a world where distractions are endless. It points you towards what's important, helping you align with your actions, habits, and mindset with your ultimate vision. And again, sort of same sort of, sort of line of thinking, but again, just giving me a bit of food for thought with, okay, well, how can I connect or align with, the ideal vision that I've got for my life through goal setting and through the process of goal setting and providing a day-to-day, week-to-week framework for how I live my life and the actions that I take each day and week.
So has there been talk of individual vision or mission statements as part of this process?
No.
Interesting.
No. I do have because I've always had a pretty good vision for what I see as my ideal life, but not a vision or mission statement. Again, they're very corporate, I guess, actions and corporate ideas. And one of the reasons I left corporate life is because
you don't like it.
I'm not a fan of it. I just wanted to move away from it.
It's interesting. It's just because I have heard of other sort of personal development and individual goal setting models that have gone down that path. And yeah, I don't even know how I feel about it, to be perfectly honest. Is it a good thing or not? I don't know. How can you really write a vision statement about yourself? Potentially you can. But when you look through all of those layers, and this is why businesses do it, it is setting that. And you talked a little bit about that is the compass in a world full of distractions. Absolutely. And that's what those clear vision and mission statements are designed to do for businesses, which is to actually give you that clarity, that true south, because we're in the southern hemisphere. It's not a true north. That true
not
south.
Your North Star?
No, it's your Southern Cross. That true marker of your direction, so that all of those things that you can get tempted to go, oh, this is interesting, we should get into that. This is another bright shiny thing over here, we should get into that. If it doesn't progress you towards that ultimate vision or mission, should you actually be spending your resources and your time and energy doing it? So I don't know. Yep. Potentially there's an element of that. You talk about you've got a clear direction of where you want to be and who you want to be. Maybe even if it's not put into words, it's kind of floating around in there somewhere.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with that. But what you just mentioned about the and sort of the shiny object syndrome, right? Where because to really achieve anything in life, at some stage you've got to get down and dirty, and there's going to be stuff that you do and actions you take which aren't particularly enjoyable, but you've just got to grind it out and go through those processes. And sometimes it's going to feel like you're not achieving anything, but you've just got to keep consistent with those actions and consistent with your focus to be able to get through and come through the other side. I mean, it's like trying to lower your handicap. I mean, you're going to go through plateaus and peaks and troughs and the rest. I mean, there's no different in any other part of your life in achieving a goal. So excuse me. So I think that having that I guess that process and that framework to be able to connect with your goals is certainly the ideal place to I guess begin with.
That all makes sense. I'm with you so far.
Yeah. So one of the things that Paul talks about, and because I've heard goals being broken down into outcome-based goals and process-based goals, but one of the things that Paul talks about in this blog post is actually 3 levels, and there's a level in the middle called performance goals. So the outcome goal, the big goal is sort of, in what I was talking about, the ideal life that I have for myself, that vision, that grand vision of how I want to live my life at the top level. Then you've got your performance goals. They're sort of, I guess, your benchmarks along the way. Right. So, for instance, you might have, say, a 5-year goal or a 10-year goal of, okay, well, this is what I want my life to look like in 10 years' time. But then what are your 1-year goals and your 3-year goals? Having those performance benchmarks of, okay, well, where do I need to be? And break it up a little from that big outcome-based goal.
So if you're going to put this in a golfing context, would it be fair to say that that big outcome goal could be, for example, becoming a scratch handicap golfer?
That
would be a classic to a lot of people.
That's the exact example that Paul uses in the in his blog,
his scratch golfer mindset approach. So the process goals might be things like practice plans and, some of those specific elements that you're going to be working on, like, or mental approach, or, what have you.
You want to be able to go out and, say practice 3 times a week or four times a week, of which you going to dedicate X amount of time to practicing your putting, X amount of time to be able to practice your short game. And even then, you break those down even further into, your fundamentals of, putting stroke and short putts, and then speed control and distance control. So, they're your process.
So they're the
goals.
controllable things like that you can.
Yeah.
It's totally up to you if you do that or you don't do that. You can control that. And that's the advantage of process goals. But the performance goals, like,
so that's potentially
what's that? How does that fit between the two?
So you know how we talk about strokes gained, for instance, right? So at the moment we've got our strokes gained based against a scratch handicapper, and they're broken down into 4 different sections. Well, your performance based goals would be, and say you start off being a 10 handicapper. So your performance-based goals might be, okay, well, in 12 months' time, I want to get my, driving, which might be, 12. I want to get that down to 8. My putting, might be right in the middle, might be 10. I want to get that down to, to 6.5. My short game, and so on and so forth. So you're setting yourself 12-month goals of your strokes gained, and this is just one example that you can use, because you can potentially have handicap based goals as well. But if we're talking strokes gained, you can set yourself benchmarks of, okay, well, in 12 months time, this is where I want my strokes gained data to be. I'm not going to be a scratch handicapper in 12 months time, but my game might be 8 or 7. And this is the breakdown from a strokes gain perspective as to what I want to see the improvements in my game, and from there you can put a framework around your process based goals on what you want to focus on in your practice.
Yeah, so I'm just sorry, I'm just trying to pull this together in a way that makes it all, kind of hang together quite nicely in my brain anyway. So it feels like in this example.
In your 50-year-old brain.
Yeah, which is not working as quickly as it did last week. So in this example, what we're doing is we want to get to scratch. And I would imagine that to have developed that process-based approach, like to develop the process, we've analysed where we currently are and the gap between where we currently are and the ultimate goal of where we want to get to. And so we've probably said, because we wouldn't just say, I want to get to scratch, so I'm going to set a process goal of practicing my driving this amount of times, practicing my short game, blah, blah, blah. The reason you've selected those certain things is because you feel that they're the best strategy to get you to that ultimate destination. And then we're setting some of those performance-based goals as road markers along the way to make sure that we're staying on track to get to that ultimate goal. Is that a fair description?
Yeah, and it's sort of reverse engineered a little bit in that you're looking at the end goal to start off with. So you're looking at being a scratch handicap in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. Okay, so what are my performance based goals? What are my benchmarks that I need to achieve along the way? And then because your improvement is probably going to, from 10 to 5 is probably going to be in the first half of the journey, and then sort of, it's really hard work to get from 5 down to scratch. So you need to benchmark, where you are in that journey. And then from those performance-based goals and those benchmarks, that's when you can start going, okay, well, on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, this is what I need to commit to be able to achieve those goals. Because if you want to go out and become a scratch handicapper, yet you're only playing once every 2 weeks, that's not really going to work.
You do have to do it this way. Like you need to have that. You need to reverse engineer. You need to have that ultimate goal in mind. Otherwise, what's going to happen is all you're doing is you're going, well, this is where I'm at the moment. I want to get better, so I'm going to do these things to get better. But if I don't have a destination in mind and an ultimate goal in mind, then getting better might be dropping my handicap by 0.01. It might not necessarily be moving me anywhere meaningful.
Correct.
Without having that destination in mind to try and push you into, to set that up, to set those performance metrics up, and to set that process up effectively, you do need that destination. Otherwise, a little bit like jumping in the car saying, I'm going to go somewhere.
Well, yeah, and you will.
You will. Is it any good? I don't know.
Yeah. And any road gets you nowhere. I mean, the old saying.
Yeah.
But one of the keys as well is it's about quality rather than quantity as well. It's about being deliberate and being intentional in your actions.
Yeah.
And I think that's really key as well. And we've talked previously about, the golfer that just goes out in the range and just beats balls for the sake of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's really not going to get you anywhere. You need to be able to be deliberate and intentional in what you do, especially with your process-based goals.
Yes. Well, that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. So there's a couple of points that Paul also makes, which I was given me a little bit of food for thought. And what he talks about is that goal achievement also requires an identity change to a certain point, because where you start off from is going to be very different to where you end up.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So, and what he says is, to achieve something different, you've got to do something different from what you've done previously. Right. So, you've got to deliberately make that change. And there's a couple of sort of things that Paul gets you to, I guess, visualize. And that is, say, a person who is a scratch handicapper, right? What does that person do? Like, how do they talk to themselves? How do they talk to others? How do others view that person, that scratch handicapper? What habits does that scratch handicapper do have both on and off the golf course? And how do they respond to different situations, challenging situations, stressful situations? So that sort of just gives you a little bit of, I guess, food for thought around, okay, well, what's the person that I need to step into? What does that person look like? And that also can help with some of the personal goals, especially the way that you talk to yourself. And the more I read, whether it be golf psychology books, whether it be blogs, whether it be listening to podcasts, the way that you talk to yourself, I think, is so critical around the achievement of being the best version of yourself. I think I don't think it can be overstated.
I agree. I actually also think this is a forerunner concept to what we've talked about quite a bit about the self-perception challenge. And as, again, in a golf-specific context, as the handicap shifts of moving your self-perception in line with that, but in fact, what's more beneficial is moving the self-perception in front of that to lead the change rather than catch up to the change. Now, that sounds pretty straightforward, but it actually isn't. If you've spent, I know because I've lived this, like if you've spent a lot of years as a, say a mid-teen handicapper or higher, and then you put a lot of the work in and you see the handicap drop down and you end up in single digits, but the self-perception hasn't caught up to that. That's tricky. But also what I also found, the flip side of that, is that the first thing that actually generated a lot of handicap reduction was shifting the self-perception from thinking of myself as an 18 handicapper to thinking of myself as a 12 handicapper. Yeah. And that drove a lot of change. And then, making that change again to think about as a single digit handicapper drove a lot of change. Took a bit of Took a bit of catching up to truly believe it, which I think is the trick. You can use these, and we've talked about this before, that the brain knows when you're having it on. You know, you can use these things to say, I'm going to think of myself as this person that I want to become, but it's got to be real enough for you to believe it to really shift that self-perception.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's where the plateaus are too. I mean, you know, you might go from, say, you know, a 15 handicapper down to 10, and then you've got to consolidate that position. You've got to consolidate your game around that 10 handicap. And it does take a little bit of time for your brain to get your head around the fact that, oh, I'm a 10 handicapper. The next step for me is to become a single digit handicapper.
Yeah.
And especially if you spend a fair bit of time in that sort of, you know, 15 to 18, which you did, it does take a period of consolidation for your brain just to get used to that space that you're now living in.
It does. It absolutely does. Yeah. Very interesting. It's a good point.
Yeah. So for me, you know, my steps forward now, because I've got a pretty good understanding of, you know, what I need to, you know, what my vision is, you know, and my ideal life. But my I guess homework now is to go through that process of setting performance-based goals, of which I do have some performance-based goals. However, I probably haven't done it as diligently as what I need to, and then be able to break that down into the process-based goals so that, you know, I know from, you know, each day, each week, what I'm doing and where I need to be and how much time I need to allocate to be able to, and certainly to each area of my game as well. I mean, you know, Paul's asked me to allocate 15 minutes a day into some sort of mindfulness practice, whether that be, you know, meditation, whether that be breath work, you know, visualization. So, and what he's asked me to do is the closer that is to when I get up, the better that's going to be, and the better that's going to be to set myself up for the rest of the day. So that's my challenge over the next, well, it's going to take a few weeks to work through, but yeah, that's going to be my challenge for the next sort of 3 to 4 weeks.
Wow. It's quite a bit.
Yeah, it is. It is. And look, what I'm doing with Paul is challenging me a little bit and challenging my, I guess, my traditional views on what I need to be doing. But I also think that's a really good thing.
You've always been a traditional guy, Andy Walker.
I have always been a traditional guy. However, some of those traditions probably need to be left in the first part of 50.
Yeah. Look, it's always healthy to challenge the thinking and to look at things from a different perspective. In terms of setting the specific goals, correct me if I'm wrong, but Paul's given you a framework for you to then go away and do your own work to fill in the answers, essentially, and your approach. There is a school of thought that having external help with goal setting process, or actually identifying the goals to set, can help them stick.
Yes, if you're talking about
probably more process goals than outcome goals, though, in fairness. Yeah. And what this is driving at, sorry, just put context around it, is the value of having a coach
and an accountability partner.
Yeah.
So, and that's part of it as well. In the while, you know, that's one of the reasons we started, you know, the show, to keep each other accountable, and we have to a certain extent. There are other areas in my life where I probably still need that accountability partner because, you know, I I work for myself. It's just me. I don't have any staff. I don't have any managers. Yes, I've got clients and I'm accountable to them to a certain extent, but um, when it comes down to it, it's really just me and my business.
Mm.
So having that coach and that accountability partner is definitely a positive in that respect.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that one of the reasons why people employ coaches in a wide variety of disciplines, like that might be a swing coach, it might be whatever sport you play, it might be in business, it might be, it could be any facet of your life. But, you might say, I want to be a scratch golfer, just to continue to use that analogy, but I actually can't quite identify the path to get there.
Yeah.
I can't accurately diagnose my weak spots. I can't, I don't have enough knowledge to set the path out in front of me that I need to follow. And that's, I think, where the coach comes in to say, all right, I can see that you want this as your big, hairy goal. It's either realistic or it isn't. Hopefully it is. If they say it isn't, then potentially, you've either got the wrong goal or the wrong coach.
Yes, correct.
Anyway, let's say it is, but then they might say, all right, well, this is where you think you are and you think your path forward lies, but this is my opinion of where you are and where the path forward lies. And ideally in that good relationship, there'd be some degree of negotiation or discussion between the two parties to actually figure out what that best path forward is. And that, I think, will be what gets the best buy-in. And I also think with that in mind, it's those times when that coach-player or coach-coachee relationship breaks down is when there isn't the negotiation and there isn't the agreement and the discussion, maybe where the coach just says, this is the way you got to go and do it because this is the way I coach everyone. This is my one method. Yeah. Now this is what you got to do. And you sit there and you go, well, that doesn't feel right. That's not me. And I think there are those times when that breaks down. But if there is that really good insight to go, this is what I see of you, for you, and from you, and this is how it could work, I think that's really powerful. And yes, then you are engaged and invested in it with someone else from that accountability perspective, that that I'm not just letting myself down in those moments of weak motivation, but I'm going to have to answer about this to somebody else when I admit that I haven't done it.
Mm. Yeah. No, and I agree with that. And certainly coming back to the the framework that a coach uses, I do think there needs to be a level of framework there, but a coach needs to work within the individual, and because the individual may have traits that maybe don't fit within the traditional framework of what's orthodox, but because they're a little bit different, that will allow them to achieve so much more than they otherwise would have. And you see that, coming back to golf, you see that on the PGA Tour all the time. Sure. All the great players have their own idiosyncrasies that allow them to play the sort of golf that they are able to get out there and play.
Absolutely. There's so many different ways of getting the ball to the hole. As they say, the golf ball only cares about that sort of inch and a half around impact. Doesn't care about everything else you do. The rest of it obviously sets it up for that to be delivered in the most repeatable fashion. But, everyone is different. But it's not just the technical side of things, but everyone's approach is different. Everyone's threshold for the hard work and the repetition and the number of times that they can go and do it before they hit the law of diminishing returns and need to go and recharge the batteries. And, different people emotionally and psychologically will approach things differently, which requires, that's probably where the big art form of a good coach comes in, is actually identifying some of those parts, not just around the technical side of it.
Yeah. And there are plenty of examples like that. I think that a golfer like, say, Joel Damon would have a very different framework to work within than, say, Bryson DeChambeau. They're completely different personalities.
So. Yeah.
Obviously Joel Damon's very laid back, and he would probably, need to be a lot more social and have a lot more sort of social time. Whereas Bryson just seems to be 100% go all of the time and probably doesn't have an off switch.
Yeah. And would want to get into the ins and outs and the nitty gritty of the technical reasons for or against a particular path forward, which, a Joel Damon type or a Cam Smith, I'd put in probably a similar bucket. Probably doesn't care so much about that, but just wants more the feel and the outcome and the what they're doing, not necessarily all of the detail about the how they're doing it. So that's a good point. They're very, very different characters for sure. Yeah.
So look, there's a lot there, and I think that I'm being pushed in directions or dragged, I should say, in directions that I didn't think I would go in. However, I've always been pretty open to different challenges, and that's part of the reason why I've engaged with Paul and to do something different, because I don't want to have a repeat of last year was good, but even still there were things last year that I didn't achieve that I wanted to achieve for varying reasons. And this year I do have some fairly lofty goals. I'm not saying I'm going to achieve them all, but I think that I need to do something different to achieve something different.
I would say that makes complete sense. You've made me think about a few things as well, as per usual, Andy Walker. There's quite a bit in that. I think potentially we need to get Paul back on the show.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure he'd come back on, and it's shown me a little bit of a different side to him, in that his media persona and what he how he sells himself is around the hypnotherapy, but there's a lot more to it than that, as we're discovering. So I'm quite enjoying the engagement.
Good. So what are the next steps, Andy Walker? Where to from here?
Well, for me, it's the next few weeks are around setting those the performance goals and the process goals. I've already, as we spoke about last week, I've already got certain events that I want to play in this year, and I think that the senior amateur's coming up in less than a month, and I still haven't played a round of golf, which
this is perfect preparation.
So I'm probably going to go into the senior amateur a little bit underdone, but there are reasons for that, and I've got to accept that there are reasons for that. But certainly coming into the back half of this year, I want to be in a really, really good spot. And certainly, when after I was started to play well in April last year, I felt as though I was going to sort of be down around scratch or maybe a little bit lower at the back end of 2024, and that didn't happen. I mean, I had some injuries and the rest. However, this year, that's my stretch goal. I'm starting the year on 2.0. I'm really keen to be able to get down to scratch or lower in 2025. So that's the big one.
I think you have to have that goal without a doubt. Absolutely. Because what did you start last year at? We were at 4.7 or something like that?
Yeah, 4.7 I started at. So, I mean, look, I more than halved my handicap in 2024. And I look back and, think that, okay, well, if I had started 2024 and someone had said that to me at the start of 2024, I would have said, oh, yeah, that's pretty good. I would have been pretty happy at the end of it. But then at the end of 2024, at the end of last year, I actually wasn't that happy with it. I was a bit disappointed with where I ended up, to be honest with you. So
I mean, I suppose there's the what ifs and the missed opportunities with in being out for injury during the middle of the year, and obviously you felt like you were making good progress before the injury issue, so that sort of paused things and probably pushed them back a little bit. So I actually think it's a really good result that you achieved. I look at my movement through the year. I think I went from around about 10 to a low of 8.1. And to be honest, I wanted to be down at about 6 by the end of the year. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. I feel like I didn't necessarily get some of the improvement that I was hoping to. But that's probably, in honesty, a byproduct of just complexity of being able to put the time in that's necessary. I don't think that's an unusual thing. That's usually your answer for not playing golf, but I think that was one of the things that was definitely difficult. And and this year hasn't started any differently. In honesty, it's been a bit of a struggle, but I need to find a way through that.
And I agree, because I'm the same. Moving house and getting a house ready to sell and going through that process and moving and all the rest. There are plenty of reasons not to play golf, and I stick my hand up and say, I have used those excuses not to play golf. But at the end of this year, is that going to, am I going to be satisfied by that? And the answer is no. So I've got to find a way to turn that around.
Yeah, I think we probably need to have a deeper conversation about this on another episode. But I feel like,
what about on Saturday night after a few beverages?
It's going to happen. It's going to happen, and we'll get some really quality input from a few of the other guests as well.
Do you reckon we should flip some mics on just to see what happens?
We will. Don't worry. I'll bring the little guys.
Nice. But
I feel like we've got to get away from this thinking of not that this is the paradigm, but the all or nothing. Like you're either playing golf or you're not. And because the actual playing of golf, that's a big chunk of time. Even 9 holes, it's a couple of hours.
Yep.
So when you're talking about getting to the course and whatnot. So maybe there's also got to be an element of just making sure that every single day there's something that's progressing performance and progressing us further towards that goal.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be a little thing.
No.
It could be a workout, could be breathing exercises, could be some mental work, it could be some, shadow swinging, it could be some high performance center work. There's got to be 5 or 10 minutes within a given day where you can do something to move the needle forwards. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, part of that, and one of the things that I've got already, and it's because I've got a daily action plan that I fill out the night before, and I've allocated what my goal is, and I did it this morning. Unfortunately, yesterday morning didn't really work out that well, but there are reasons for that as well. But I got up early this morning and I spent the first part of the morning in the high performance center. It was only half an hour, just starting to hit some balls into the net. I've got a practice putting mat. I hit 20 putts of varying distances. The David McClelland, well, it was 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet. I went through that sort of 3 times. So I did a little bit of work this morning, and that's what I want to be able to do, most mornings. Unfortunately, tomorrow I've got to go to Sydney, so that sort of throws a bit of a spanner in the works there. But then on Thursday, I'll get back to, my, what I call my standard morning. So what the goal is, 4 out of the 5 mornings a week, I want to have as my standard morning where I fit in that, 15 minutes of mindfulness, breath work, meditation, and then, half an hour in the high performance center, hitting, maybe 10 minutes of pitching, 10 minutes of full shots, and then 10 minutes of putting. And then I come in, get the kids ready for school, and away we go for the day. Yep.
It all sounds good. The trick is sticking with it and making sure that it happens when other things get in the way.
Yeah,
absolutely. Very good, Andy Walker. There's a lot in all of that. It's a good reminder. It is a good reminder. So best of luck with that process, and thoroughly look forward to catching up in person on the weekend.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be a great weekend.
Should be a lot of fun. So we won't be doing any recording early on Sunday.
Maybe not.
I think not. Excellent. All right, mate. Any other topics? Any other pearls of wisdom throughout the pilgrims? before we wrap up?
Oh, look, I think that probably does it for this week. I think there's a lot there, and it's going to take a little bit of time to digest. I've got my work set out for me, and I think there's some things that maybe yourself or the Pilgrims might be able to take away and have a bit of a think about and work towards.
Definitely. I think there's a goal-setting episode coming up in the not-too-distant future, I think. But until then, please get out there, play golf, join the yearly championship, post your scores. There has been a score posted. I don't know if you've seen that.
42 points.
Yes. By your namesake, Benny Walker. No relation, so I'm told.
No relation.
Cracking round of golf, 42 points. But you know what? We are offering points in the yearly championship all the way to 6th place.
Yes, we are.
I think. I'm pretty sure it's 6th. So I'm pretty sure it's unlucky 7th gets nothing. So don't be shy.
Well, my aim, I probably won't be able to get out next week, but the week after, the last week of February, is going to be my first comp round. Likely to be that Tuesday the 25th, and that'll be my one comp round before I crack on into the senior amateur the week after.
Great preparation, one round in 3 months. I will be probably having a round of golf around about a similar time, maybe that weekend just prior. I did play 9 holes this afternoon, Andy Walker, just before jumping on the microphones.
Nice.
And from a Stableford perspective, it would have been 17 points. Not bad.
Solid.
Not bad.
Solid.
Not amazing. Not bad. I've had better.
Well, need to get into the high performance center and start doing some consistent work.
I listened back to the last episode, and I think I'd just like to quote you quoting Brooks Koepka, and just need to play better.
That's what it's all about.
We'll leave that one with you, Pilgrims, and I think that's pretty much it for another episode. Can't wait to see you all on the other side of the half century, and
which you will be when the Pilgrims are listening.
Which I already am, but I'm not. That's weird. So with all of that in mind, Andy Walker, what else do we need to do?
Rock out, Pilgrims.
Thanks for listening to us today. We love hearing from our Pilgrims, so please reach out to us through any of the links in the show notes. We know golf is hard, so we hope we can help you shoot better scores and inspire you to keep trying. Rock on, Pilgrims.